Magis Day everyone. So at this point in time, I will now be discussing to you the topics on ABM 111 Business Math course. I will also be answering few problems and give you some examples which may help you on this coming exam week. So for Unit 1, Lesson 1, the topic is all about the fundamental operations on fractions, decimal, and percentages. But first, let's talk about fractions. So, a fraction is a part of a whole, or more generally, any number of equal parts. A fraction describes how many parts of a certain size there are. A number n is a fraction if it is expressed as a quotient of two integers, which is written as n is equals to n over d, where d is not equals to 0. The n here is called the numerator and the d is the denominator. If d is equals to 0, it is called as undefined, and if both the numerator and the denominator are equal to 0, then it is called as indeterminate. So there are three types of fraction. The first type of fraction is called the proper fraction. In the proper fraction, the numerator is smaller than the denominator. An example of this is 1/2. The other type of fraction is called the improper fraction. In the improper fraction, the numerator is greater than the denominator. An example of this is 8/5. The last type of fraction is called as the mixed number. In the mixed number, it is a combination of a whole number and a fraction. An example of this is 1 and 3/7. The next concept that we will be talking about is decimals. So, in the decimal, it is a number written with a decimal point and the remainder that represents portions of tenths. An example of this is 0.5. So in the decimal, it is a number whose the whole number and the fractional number is separated by a dot, which is called as the decimal point. The last concept that we will be talking about is percentage. So here, in the percentage, it is a measure of a portion in relation to a whole, often expressed in relation of how many of something there are per 100. So under the percentage, there is what we call as the percent. The percent is a decimal number multiplied by 100 with a percent symbol. So any number. So a decimal number, assume that n is a decimal number. So it is multiplied by 100 with a percent symbol. An example of a percentage is 25%, 98%, and 63%. So now let's proceed on the guided practice given in the module. So in the guided practice in the module, the given for number 1 is 0.5. 0.5 is a decimal number. What we are going to do here is to convert 0.5 into fraction and percent. In converting decimal to percent, what we're going to do is move the decimal point 2 places to the right. So 1, 2. So the decimal point will be here. So there will be 0 here. And then, so it will become 50. So affix the percent sign. Therefore, the percent value of 0.5 is 50%. We can also convert the decimal number into percent by simply multiplying 0.5 times 100%. 0.5 times 100%, the answer will still be 50%. Now, for converting decimal to fraction or percent to fraction, what we're going to do here, so in converting percent to fraction, we simply remove the percent sign. So in removing percent sign, it will become 50 and then place 100 in the denominator. So 50/100, reduce it into lowest term, which will become 1/2. So therefore, the fraction form of 0.5 is 1/2. Number 2 given in the guided practice of the module is 60%. So the same process in getting the fraction form of 60%, just simply remove the percent sign, so 60, then putting 100 in the denominator, then reduce to lowest term. The lowest term of 60 over 100 is 3 over 5. So therefore, the fraction form of 60% is 3 over 5. Now, in getting the decimal form of 60% or 60% to decimal, we simply remove the percent symbol. So 60, move the decimal point 2 places to the left. So the decimal point is here, and then move 2 places to the left, 1, 2. So therefore it will become here. And then affix zeros to decimals as needed. In affixing 0, it will become 0.60. Fractions can also be converted into decimal by simply dividing the numerator by the denominator. So 3 divided by 5 is 0.6 or 0.60. Another given is 4 over 5. 4 over 5 is a fraction. In converting fraction to percent, the first step that we're going to do is to convert first the fraction to its decimal equivalent by dividing the numerator by the denominator. So, 4 divided by 5 is 0 times 0. So, 4, bring down 4, and then extend. 40 divided by 5 is 8. So, 40. Or we can simply use a calculator. So, 4 divided by 5 is equals to 0.8. So, therefore, the decimal value of 4 over 5 is 0.8. So, in getting the percent value of 4 over 5, we simply move the decimal point 2 places to the right in the decimal form of 4 over 5. So 0.8, in getting the percent, so move the two places to the right. So 1, 2. The decimal point will be here, so there will be 0 here. And then affixing the percent sign. So 80, affixing the percent sign. So therefore, the percent form of 4 over 5 is 80%. Now, we will be going to solve on the different operations involving fractions, decimals, and percentage. So, in the fundamental operation on addition, in the given, add 1/5 plus 3 over 7. So, as we can see, these two fractions have different denominators. So, in adding fractions with different denominators, the first step that we need to do is to find the LCD. So, in finding the LCD, we just list the multiples of each of the denominator and what is common between the two is the LCD. So, since in the given, the two denominators are prime numbers, so we can simply get the LCD by multiplying the two denominator. So 5 times 7 is equals to 35. Therefore, the LCD is 35. But first, we need to make these fractions into similar fractions. So in making it into similar fractions, we divide the LCD to the denominator and multiply it to its corresponding numerator. So 35 divided by 5 is equals to 7 plus times 1 is equals to 7 over the denominator or LCD, which is 35, plus 35 divided by 7 is equals to 5 times 3, so 15 over 35. So now we already have the same denominators or similar fractions. We can now easily add the two numerator and just copy the denominator. So 7 plus 15 is equals to 22 over the denominator, which is 35. Therefore, 1/5 plus 3 over 7 is equals to 22 over 35. Now, for the operation in subtraction, subtract 7 over 8 minus 4 over 7. So, since they also have different denominators though, so the first step that we need to do is to find the LCD. The LCD of 8 and 7 is 56. So, in making it into similar fractions, 56 divided by 8 is equals to 7 times 7 equals 49 over 56 minus 56 divided by 7 is equals to 8 times 4 is equals to 32 over the denominator, which is 56. So now we can simply subtract the two fractions. So 49 minus 32 is equals to 17 over the denominator, which is 56. So therefore, 7 over 8 minus 4 over 7 is equals to 17 over 56. So for the operations involving multiplication is, in the given, multiply 0.9 times 0.16. In multiplying decimal, we just simply multiply it. So 0.16 times 0.9. So 6 times 9 is 54. So 4 carry 5. 9 times 1 is 9 plus 5, 14. So carry 1. 9 times 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1. And then copy the, count the decimal places. So 1, 2, 3. Then move so count the decimal places. So 3 means 1, 2, 3. Therefore, the decimal point will be here. So hence, 0.9 times 0.16 is equals to 0.144. For division, in the given, divide 0.24 divided by 0.2. In dividing decimal, we first make the decimal number into a whole number. So 0.24 divided by 0.2. So first we need to move the decimal places to the right in order for the dividend to be a whole number. So 1, 2. And then move also 2 places of the decimal point in the divisor. So 1, 2. Therefore the divisor will become 20. 24 divided by 20 is 1. 1 times 20 is 20. So bring down 4. And then continue. Put a decimal point. So continue. Bring down the 0. 40 divided by 20 is 2. 2 times 20 is 40. So therefore, 0.24 divided by 0.2 is equals to 1.2. So the fundamental operations on fractions, decimals, and percentages can also be applied into a real-life situation. So for fraction, in the given, there are 8 pieces of pizza. Justin ate 5 over 8 of the pizza for dinner. He ate 1/4 of the pizza for a bedtime snack. How much of the pizza he has eaten in all? So in here, the given are 5 over 8, which is the amount of pizza Justin ate for dinner, plus 1/4, which is the amount of pizza Justin ate for bedtime snack. So in this, since the denominator are not the same, so the first thing that we need to do here is to find the LCD. The LCD for 8 and 4 is 8. So 8 divided by 8 is 1 times 5, so 5 over 8. Plus 8 divided by 4 is 2 times 1, so 2 over the denominator, which is 8. Since we already have the same denominators, which are also called as a similar fractions, we can now easily add the numerator and then copy the denominator. So 5 plus 2 is 7. And then copy the denominator, which is 8. So therefore, the total amount of pizza that Justin ate in all is 7 over 8. So this is the total amount of pizza that Justin ate. There are also situations that involves the use of decimals. So in the given, if 1 pound of pineapple costs 35 pesos and 25 centavos, how much would 5 pounds of pineapple cost? So each pound of pineapple costs 35 pesos and 25 centavos. So the question here is, what is the cost of pineapple if there are 5 pounds? So in this situation, we only need to multiply 35.25 times 5 pounds. So with the use of a calculator, so 35.25 times 5 is equals to 176.25. So therefore 5 pounds of pineapple would cost 176 pesos and 25 centavos. That is the cost of the pineapple if there are 5 pounds. So for the concept of percentages, there are also situations in which we use the different fundamental operations for percentages. In the given, Erica scores 72 marks out of 80 in her math exam. Convert her marks into percent. So here, the given is 72, which is the score of Erica, over 80, which is the total amount of items in her math exam. So what we are going to do here is to convert this fraction into percent. So for converting fraction to percent, we first convert the fraction to its decimal equivalent by dividing the numerator by the denominator. So using the calculator, let's divide 72 divided by 80. So the decimal equivalent for 72 over 80 is equals to 0.9. Since we already have the decimal equivalent, what we're going to do here to get the percentage of Erica's score is simply moving 2 decimal places to the right. So here, the decimal value of 72 over 8, just move the decimal point 2 places to the right. So 1, 2. The decimal point will be here. So it will become 90. It will become 90. And then affixing the percent sign. So 72 over 80 is equals to 90%. But there are also ways on how to convert 0.9 into percentage. So 0.9, converting it into percentage is simply by multiplying it by 100%. So 0.9 times 100% will still be equal to 90%. So therefore, the Erica's percentage on her math exam is 90%. So that would be all for the fundamental operations on fractions, decimals, and percentages. Now let's move on to the next lesson, which talks about ratio and proportion. So here, there are what we call as the ratio, the rate, and the proportion. In the ratio, it is a comparison or relationship between two or more quantities. assuming that the quantities are A and B. So there are two ways in expressing ratio. So first, it is expressed into fraction form, and the other one uses the symbol colon, which is read as is 2. So the ratio of A and B is A over B, or A is to B. An example of ratio is 1/2 or 1:2. On the other hand, there is what we call as the rate. So similarly to ratio, rate is a comparison or relationship between two or more quantities. However, in rate, we already use different units. It involves the addition of different units. So let's just say a car travels 20 km for every 1 hour. So the quantities here is the distance traveled and the time traveled by the car. So 20 km over 1 hour is also be written in the rate as 20 km per hour. Lastly is proportion. Proportion is the equity of two ratio. So it involves two ratios. Once we said as equity, so it means equal, congruent, or proportion. So the two ratios in proportion are proportional to each other. So the proportion can be written or expressed in three different forms. So first is A is to B is equals to C is to D. A is to B is to C is to D. And the other one is A over B is equals to C over D. An example of a proportion is 2 is to 3 is equals to 6 is to 9. Which can also be expressed into fraction, which is 2 over 3 is equals to 6 over 9. We can say that they are proportional to each other because 6 over 9, if we reduce it to the lowest term, it will become 2 over 3. The other ways in finding the ratio is through comparing numerators of fractions with the same denominator. So in the given example, a total of 100 t-shirts of 30 small size, 50 medium size, and 20 large size t-shirt. So find the ratio of small to medium to large. So here we have the number of t-shirts with different sizes. So there are 30 for small size over 100 of the total number of t-shirts. So we express it into a fraction. So for small size t-shirts, there are 30 over 100. 50 over 100 for medium size t-shirt and 20 over 100 for large size t-shirt. So a total of it is 100. So we just need to compare the numerators in order to get the ratio. So hence we can say that the ratio of small is to medium is to large is 30 is to 50 is to 20. If we reduce this into lowest term, it will become 3 is to 5 is to 2. Therefore, the ratio of the t-shirts from small is to medium is to large is 3 is to 5 is to 2. So let's now proceed in the concept of rate. A rate is a ratio that compares quantities of different units. So in this, there is what we call as the unit rate. So a unit rate is a rate that has a denominator of 1. That is a rate for 1 unit of a given quantity. So example of this is the car burns 20 liters for every 200 km traveled. So in this, we can express these two quantities into ratio. So 20 liter is to 200 kilometer travel. If we reduce this into lowest term, it will become 1:20. The rate of a car can also be expressed therefore in 1/20 liter per kilometer. So let's now proceed in the concept of proportion. So in the proportion, it is the equity of two ratios. It involves two ratios. So if A over B and C over D are equal ratios, so if these two ratios are equal to each other, then the statement A over B is equals to C over D is called a proportion. There are different types of proportion. So the first type is direct proportion. The other one is indirect proportion, and the last one is a partitive proportion. So in the direct proportion, a variable x is directly proportionate to y. So if the value of x increases, the value of y also increases. So if the value of x decreases, the value of y also decreases. It is expressed as x is equals to k times y, where k here is the constant of proportionality. An example of a direct proportion is, as the price of each ball pen increases, so the total cost of the ball pen for the whole school year is also increases. So as the allowance decreases, another example is, as the allowance decreases, then the number of things or food that you can buy also decreases. In this relationship, the product between two variables is a constant. It is expressed as k is equals to x over y, where x and y are the two variables that is inversely proportional and k is the constant. Okay, let's try to solve problems involving direct proportion. So in the given, solve for missing term. 5:A is equals to 31:155. So the missing term here is A. So the first thing that we needed to do is to express the proportion into fraction form. So 5:A is expressed into fraction form as 5 over A equals 31:155 is expressed as 31 over 155. The next step is to cross multiply. So cross multiply the fractions. A times 31 is 31A equals 5 times 155. So 31A is equals to 5 times 525 is 755. Then we divide both sides by 31 to determine the value of A. So cancel 31. A is equals to 755 divided by 31 is equals to 25. So therefore, the missing term A is 25. Let's try another example. A businessman ordered raw potatoes in two sizes, medium and large, in the ratio of 5:3 respectively. If he ordered 125 kilos of medium-sized potatoes, how many kilos of large potatoes did he order? So in this, the first thing that we need to do is to construct a proportion statement. In solving, so let x be the number of kilos for large potatoes. 5 is to 3, where the 5 here is the standard kilos for medium-sized potatoes, and 3 is the number of kilos for large potatoes, equals. So if the businessman ordered 125 kilos, how many kilos of large potatoes did he order? So 125 is to x, where x is the number of kilos for large potatoes that the businessman ordered. Then, the next step is to express this proportion statement into fraction. So 5:3 is expressed in a fraction as 5/3 is equals to 125 is to x is expressed as 125/x. Then the next step is to cross multiply. 5 times x is equals to 5x equals 3 times 125 is equals to 375. So in this, 5x is equals to 375. What we need to do is to divide both sides by 5 to get the value of x. So cancel the 5. It will remain x. 375 divided by 5 is equals to 75. Therefore, the businessman will order 75 kilos of large potatoes. Proceeding to the next type of proportion, which is called the indirect or the inverse proportion. So, in the indirect or inverse proportion, the variable x is indirectly or inversely proportionate to y. So, if the value of x increases, the other one or the value of y decreases. And if the value of x decreases, the value of y increases. So with this, it can be expressed into x is equals to k over y, where k is the constant of proportionality. Examples of the indirect or inverse proportion is, as the number of workers working on a certain job increases, then the time to finish the job decreases. Another thing also is that as the number of pets decreases, the yield of the crops increases. In this relation, the product between two variables is a constant, which is expressed as k is equals to x times y, where x and y are a two variable that is inversely proportional and k is constant. Okay, let's try to solve real-life situations involving indirectly or inversely proportion. In the given, it takes 24 days for 6 workers to finish a job. How many days will it take for 12 workers to finish the same job, assuming that each of the workers has the same capability? So with this, the first thing that we need to do is to construct a proportion statement and then express the ratios into fraction. So with this, in the given, it will take 24 days. So 24 is to 6 workers. It will take 24 days for 6 workers to finish a job. Equals, since the number of days is unknown, then let x be the number of days, is to 12 workers. Then what we'll do next is to express this proportion statement into fraction form. 24 is to 6 is expressed as 24 over 6 equals x is to 12 is expressed into fraction as x over 12. Next step is to multiply the numerator and denominator. So 24 times 6 is equals to 144 equals x times 12 is equals to 12x. Next step is to divide both sides by 12. So divide both sides by 12. Cancel the 12. So x is equals to 144 divided by 12 is equals to 12. Therefore, it will take 12 days. It will take 12 days for 12 workers to work on the same job. The last type of proportion is a partitive proportion. So in a partitive proportion, the parts are expressed as ratios to the whole that represents 100%. So in other words, the whole is divided into parts. An example of a situation that involves partitive proportion is that if 5,000 shirts are manufactured in 3 different sizes which are small, medium, and large in the ratio of 3:5:2 respectively, find the corresponding numbers of shirts manufactured for each size. So in this situation, the first step that we need to do is to find the whole. For finding the whole, we only need to add the values in the ratio. So the ratio is 3:5:2. So we only need to add this in order to get the whole. So 3 plus 5 plus 2 is equals to 10. So therefore, the whole is 10. It only means that 3 out of 10 is for small sizes, 5 out of 10 for medium sizes, and 2 out of 10 for large sizes shirts. The second step is to multiply each ratio to the total number of shirts, which is 5,000. So 3/10 times 5,000 is equals to 1,500 small size shirts. 5/10 times 5,000 is equals to 2,500 medium size shirts. And then lastly, 2/10 times 5,000 shirts is equals to 1,000 large sizes shirts. So therefore, the total number of shirts manufactured in the ratio 3:5:2 are 1,500 small size shirts, 2,500 medium size shirts, and 1,000 large size shirts. So that will be all for partitive proportion. So now let's try to solve the word problems given on the guided practice in the module. So for given number 1, Albert and William are candidates. Albert received 2,500 votes while William received 3,000 votes. What is the ratio of Albert's vote against William's? So in here, the given is that Albert have received 2,500 votes, while William received 3,000 votes. So the question here is, what is the ratio of Albert's votes against William's? So in here, we can represent it into a ratio. So the votes of Albert to William is 2,500 is to 3,000. We can also express this ratio by reducing it into lowest term, which will become 5:6. Therefore, the ratio of Albert's votes against William is 5:6. Number 2 given. How many cups of orange juice powder are needed to prepare an orange drink of 120 cups if the ratio of juice to water is 2 to 15 cups? So in here, it talks about a situation that involves a direct proportion. So for orange juice, we're going to find how many cups of juice are there in 120 cups. So let X be the cups of orange juice. So X is to 120 cups of orange drink is equals to the ratio of juice to water, which is 2:15. So in the situation for a direct proportion, in solving direct proportion, we convert this ratio into, we first express this ratio into a fraction form. So convert x is to 120 into fraction. So x is to 120 is expressed in ratio as x over 120 equals 2:15 is expressed in fraction form as 2/15. So the next step that we're going to do here is to cross multiply. So cross multiply here. X times 15 is equals to 15x equals 120 times 2 is equals to 240. Then we divide both sides by 15 in order to get the value of x. So cancel the 15. X is equals to 240 divided by 15 is equals to 16. So therefore, 16 cups of orange juice powder are needed to prepare an orange drink of 120 cups. So proceeding to the next given situation. So in the given, if 500 kilos of vegetables are sold at 60 pesos a kilo, how many kilos of vegetables can be sold at 50 pesos a kilo? In the relationship, the number of kilos sold is inversely proportionate to the price of the vegetables. Once we say as inversely proportionate, then it is an indirect or inverse proportion. So in this situation, 500 kilos is sold at 60 pesos. So the ratio is 500 kilos is to 60 pesos per kilo is equals to the, so let x be the number of kilos of vegetables sold at 50 pesos. So the ratio will become x is to 50 pesos. So similarly, so the same process, what we're going to do here is to express this ratio into a fraction. So 500 is to 60 is expressed in the fraction as 500 over 60 is equals to x is to 50 is expressed in fraction as x over 50. So since it is an indirect or inverse proportion, what we are going to do here is to multiply the numerator and the denominator. On both sides. So 500 times 60. So using the calculator, 500 times 60. So 30,000. 500 times 60 is equals to 30,000 is equals to x times 50 is equals to 50x. In order to get the value of x, divide both sides by 50. So, cancel the 50. X is equals to 30,000 divided by 50. So, using the calculator, we divide 30,000 divided by 50. So, equals 600. So, x is equals to 600. So, therefore, 600 kilos of vegetables can be sold at 50 pesos per kilo. So, another examples that includes a real-life situation is the application of rate in the real-life situation. So, in the given, if Shu drives 200 miles in 4 hours at a steady pace, how fast is she traveling? So, in here, it talks about the rate. So, if Shu drives 200 miles in 4 hours, so in a steady pace, so let's determine the rate of her car. So in this, the formula for rate is distance over time. The distance traveled should drive is 200 miles over the time that she traveled, which is 4 hours. In order to get the rate of the car, or the speeding rate of the car, we simply divide 200 divided by 4. So 200 divided by 4 is equals to 50. And then the units will be miles per hour. So therefore, the rate of the car that Shu drives is 50 miles per hour. For real-life situation, which includes a partitive proportion, so in the given, Hans ordered watermelons in 3 different sizes. So first is small, medium, and large, in the ratio of 3:5:7 respectively. If he ordered 3,000 kilos, how many kilos of each size were ordered? So in this situation, the ratio is 3:5:7. The first thing that we need to do here is to find the whole. In finding the whole, we only need to add the different ratios, which is 3 plus 5 plus 7. So 3 plus 5 plus 7 is equals to 15. So it only means that 3 out of 15 watermelons are small size, and then 5 out of 15 are medium size watermelon, and then 7 out of 15 watermelons are large size watermelons. So the next step that we're going to do here is to multiply each ratio to the total number of kilos of watermelons, which is 3,000 kilos. So 3/15 times 3,000. So multiply all of it by 3,000 kilos. So using a calculator, multiply 3/15 times 3,000 kilos. So 3/15 times 3,000 is equals to 600 kilos for small size watermelons, and then 15 and then 5/15 multiply by 3,000 kilos is 1,000 kilos for medium size watermelons, and then 7/15 times 3,000 is equals to 1,400, which is the number of kilos for large size watermelons. So therefore, the number of kilos for small watermelons is 600 kilos. 1,000 kilos of watermelons that are medium size, and then 1,400 kilos for large size watermelons. And that would be all for ratio and proportion. So now let's discuss on Unit 1, Lesson 3, which buying and selling, where the topic is all about mark up, mark on, and mark down. But first of all, let us tackle about mark up. So what is markup? Markup is a difference between the selling price and the cost price, which sometimes referred to as the margin or gross profit. It is the amount of money above their cost of a product or service that a business will charge for a product or service. So to compute for a markup, the formula for markup is markup is equals to selling price minus the cost price. Or MU is equals to S minus C, where S is a selling price and that is a price at which the commodity sold per unit, and the cost price is the total amount of money that it costs a manufacturer to produce a product or provide a service. So, a markup can also be defined as the sum of the expenses or what we call as the operating costs and the profit. So the formula for the sum of for markup with the use of expenses and profit is MU is equals to E plus P, where MU is the markup, E represents as the expenses or the operating costs, and P is the profit. The formula for selling price is S equals to S, or the selling price, equals to the C, or the cost of the goods, plus E, or the operating cost or the expenses, plus the profit or P. So, since markup is equals to the selling price minus the cost price, and the selling price is equals to the sum of the cost price, the operating cost or expenses, and profit. So it follows that markup is equals to the expenses plus the profit. So under the markup, there is also what we call as the rate of markup based on cost and based on selling price. So the formula for rate of markup based on cost is markup based on cost is equals to markup over the cost times 100%. So, for the formula for rate of markup based on selling price, so the markup rate for selling based on selling price is markup over selling price times 100%. So now let's proceed to the other concept, which is what we call as the mark-on. The mark-on is the difference between the cost of goods and its selling price. So the mark-on price, so it is a price that at which the company achieves profit. So after all its production costs have been incurred. So the profit, it is the money earned after cost price, and the operating costs are accounted for after the sale of a commodity. So mark-on is any amount of money added to the cost to arrive at a new selling price. So when a company sells something, so it already have a mark-on. So markup. So when creating mark-on, aside from markup, it adds another value for another selling price or peak selling price, in which what we call as the mark-on. So for the formula for mark-on is mark-on is equals to peak selling price minus the regular selling price. Or MO is equals to PS, which is the peak selling price, minus S, or the regular selling price. So when a company sells a product, so there is a the selling price before increase. So before increase of a product, the formula is for selling price is S is equals to C plus MU. So or what we call as the selling price is equals to the cost plus the markup of a product or services. It is how we solve as for the selling price before the product. So after the product, there is an additional to the price of a goods or services offered. So this is now the addition to the regular selling price, and this is what we call as the mark-on. So the selling price after the increase, the formula for the selling price after the increase is PS is equals to S plus MO. So it is also known as the PS, also known as the peak selling price. So peak selling price is equals to the regular selling price plus the mark-on. So for the rate of markup and mark-on, so in computing the rate for markup and mark-on, the rate of markup is equals to markup plus mark-on over the cost times 100%. It's 100%. So for the last concept, it is all about the markdown. So what is markdown? A markdown is a difference between the regular selling price and the sale price. So it is a reduction in price of a product or service based on the percentage of the original price. So unlike the markup and mark-on, markdown is the reduction in the price of the product or services. The markup and the mark-on, it is the additional to the value or the selling price of a product or services. So under the markdown, the original or the regular selling price of a product or service is what a business was changing before it decided to apply a markdown. the selling price, the sale price in markdown. So the sale price of a product or service is what the business is changing after it applies a markdown. So in computing for markdown, the formula is markdown is equals to selling price minus the sale price. Or MD is equals to S, which is the selling price, minus SP, or what we call as the selling price. So for the reasons why a markdown becomes an option for a business owner is that sometimes the item is perishable. So perishable, it means that it can be damaged or broken. And then another reason is that sometimes the items or the product has become dirty or worn out. For example, if a product has the cover of it, the plastic cover of it is taken off, just like that. So another reason is that the competition forces the marking down of the item. So note that in markdown, the rate for markdown are always computed based on the selling price. So now let's proceed to the given word problems in the guided practice regarding on markup, mark on, and markdown. So in the guided practice, in the given, Peter decided to impose a markup of 5 peso on each pen he sells to his classmates and friends. This represents 20% markup based on the selling price. Find the cost and the selling price of the pens Peter sells. So in this situation, the given values are the imposed markup of 5 pesos. So imposed markup of 5 pesos. The rate of the markup based on the selling price, which is 20%. So markup based on the selling price is 20%. So in finding the selling price, we can use the formula of rate of markup based on selling price, markup on selling price, which is markup based on selling price is equals to markup over the selling price times 100. So since we are looking for the selling price, we can convert this to this formula for finding the selling price. So the formula would be selling price is equals to 100 over the rate of markup based on selling price times markup. So in this situation, we can now solve the equation. Solve the problem. So what we are going to do here now is to substitute the given values into this formula. So to find the selling price, so selling price is equals to 100 over the markup, the rate of markup based on selling price is 20%. So 100 over 20 times the markup, which is 5 pesos. So selling price is equals to 100 divided by 20 is equals to 5. Times the markup, which is 5. So the selling price would be 5 times 5 is equals to 25. Therefore, the selling price is 25 pesos. So now we already have the value for the selling price. So we are now going to compute the for the markup. So the formula that we will going to use is markup is equals to selling price minus the cost of the product. So since we are looking for the cost of the pens, so the formula would be cost of the pens is equals to the selling price minus the markup. So substitute the given values. So the cost of the products is equals to the selling price, which is 25 pesos, minus the markup price is 5 pesos. So the cost of the products is 20 pesos. So therefore, the selling price of the pens is 25 peso and the cost of the product is 20 pesos. So now let's try to solve the guided practice regarding on markup, mark-on, and markdown. So in the given, Peter decides to impose a markup of 5 pesos on each pen he sells to his classmates and friends. This represents a 20% markup based on the selling price. Find the cost and the selling price of the pens Peter sells. So for this situation, the given values are the imposed markup. So a markup of 5 pesos and the rate of the markup based on the selling price, which is 20%. So in finding the selling price, we can use the formula of rate of mark based on selling price, which is rate of the markup based on selling price is equals to markup over the selling price times 100%. So in this, what we are going to do is to use this formula to get the selling price. So in finding this, in computing the selling price, the formula would be selling price is equals to 100. So 100 over the rate of the markup based on selling price times the markup. So since we already have the formula, what we're going to do is to substitute the value, the given formula, and solve the equation. So the selling price is equals to 100 and the rate of markup based on selling price is 20 times the markup, which is 5 pesos. So the selling price is equals to 100 divided by 20 is 5 times 5. So that would be, so the selling price would be 25 pesos. So since we already have the selling price, which is 25 pesos, so for computing the markup, the formula that we will be using is markup is equals to the selling price minus the cost of the goods or product. So since we are looking for the cost of the pens, so the formula would be the cost of the goods is equals to the selling price minus markup. So let's substitute the given values. So the cost of the goods is equals to the selling price, which is 25, minus the markup is 5 pesos. So that would be the cost of the product would be 25 minus 5 is equals to 20. So therefore, the selling price of Peter Pens is 25 pesos and the cost of his pens is 20 pesos. Okay, so for situation number 2 in the guided practice, the given is a tap costs Mang Mario 280 pesos and he decides to mark it up by 30% of the selling price. Find the selling price and markup for the said tap. So, in this situation, so the given in this situation are the cost of the product, which is 280 pesos, and the rate of markup based on selling price, which is 30%. So in finding the selling price, the formula would be selling price is equals to cost of the product plus markup. So since we only have the value for the cost of the product, so in finding the value for the markup, so markup is equals to the rate of markup based on selling price, which is 30%. So convert it into decimal, it will become 0.3 times the selling price, which can be represented as S. So now that we already have the value, so this will become the value for the markup. So since we already have the value for markup, we can now solve for the selling price. So the selling price is equals to the cost of the product is 280 plus markup, which is 0.3s. So in this situation, what we are going to do is to combine the like terms. So the like terms here are s and 0.3s. So combine the like terms by transposing the 0.3s on the other side of the equation with addition in changing its sign. So s, so transpose 0.3s to the other side, also changing the sign, will become minus 0.3s is equals to 280. So the s here is already considered having the coefficient of 1. So it only means that 1s minus 0.3s is equals to 0.7s is equals to 280. So what we're going to do is to divide the equation both sides by 0.7, and then so cancel out the 0.7 to get the value of s, or the selling price. So s is equals to the quotient of, so divide 280 by 0.7. So using the calculator, 280 divided by 0.7 is equals to 400. Therefore, the value of s, or the selling price, is 400 pesos. So since we already have the value for the selling price, So the selling price is 400 pesos. So since we already have the value for selling price, we can now solve for the value of the markup. So for the markup, the formula that we will be using is markup is equals to selling price minus the cost of the product. So markup is equals to the selling price of the product is 400 and the cost of the product is 280. So therefore, the markup is equals to 400 minus 280 is equals to 120. So therefore, the markup for the said top is the markup for the said top is 120 pesos and the selling price is 400 pesos. So that will be all for mark up, mark on, and mark down. So thank you for watching.